Text is written to the canvas in very much the same way that shapes are written to the canvas. We begin by setting up the font, and the font uses the same properties and the same values as CSS, which makes this very easy to do. We then set up the text alignment, which can be start or end or left or right or even center. In addition, when working with text, you can set up the baseline, that is the vertical alignment. That can be set to top or hanging or middle, alphabetic, or ideographic, or finally to the bottom. There is one other very useful method for working with text, and that is measure text. Pass in a string of text and get back the size in pixels. Let's take a look at how all of this plays out in code. To get started working with our text, we're going to set the canvas font, and we can set that using the same syntax that we would use with CSS. We're going to set this font to be bold, 20 pixels, Sego UI, and fall back to sans serif. We'll set the text align to start at the location we give the text. And we'll go ahead and call fill text. There are two options, stroke text, which writes it as an outline, and fill text, which writes it as filled in characters. Let's go ahead and write fill text and pass in hello HTML5 and then give it a location. That should be enough to get some text on the screen. Let's save that. Let's call up Opera. And you can see hello HTML5 displayed on the screen. We can do a little bit more with this. One thing we might want to do is surround it with a rectangle. In order to do that, we need to tell the text to align itself vertically with the bottom of the value we're going to give it for the Y value. So let's change the canvas text baseline to bottom, and let's extract the message out into a variable since we're going to need it for measuring the text as well. We'll call that message, and we could put message into fill text. We can measure the size of the text by calling measure text and passing in the message, which will give us back an object with the text size. That object has a number of properties. The one we care about at the moment is the width. So let's create a rectangle, and we'll place that rectangle at 200, 200. Tell it that its width is the width of text size, and tell it that its height is the height of our font, which is 20. This won't quite work because notice that we are setting the baseline to 200, 200 and the rectangle to 200 to 200. Let's look at that before we correct it. And you can see that the text is sitting on top of the rectangle. What we want is to set the baseline to the bottom of the rectangle. The rectangle is going to be at 200, but the font size is 20. So let's set that to 220. Save that and refresh. And that's what we were looking for. The text surrounded by a tightly fitting rectangle. In this module, we looked at the canvas. We started by looking at paths, and we looked at some of the basic functionality involved in creating shapes using a path, such as line to and move to, and how to create arcs. We then looked at text and some of the setup for text to control the font and alignment and so forth. There's quite a bit more to the canvas, and a lot more that you can do, such as animation and even 3D objects. But this module should have given you a good overview and start to the new HTML5 canvas.